Hello and welcome to the Wild Wild West podcast. My name is Richie Riche of the MHRT Network. Directly over that away is the real Alex Gibbons. You can catch him on Arrowhead Addict. And it seems just like every other podcast that is on YouTube this past week, just do a search and you will likely see Alex having made an appearance.
I'm everywhere and nowhere, man.
All at the same time.
Yeah.
Very Matrix of you right there. Down directly below here is Captain Jack of the Captain Jack Rackham YouTube channel. Catch him pretty much every day of the week, including reruns and everything else.
Well, I'll tell you what. This week, actually tonight, tomorrow, and then I'm going on hiatus.
Whoa.
I'm going on hiatus for at least 3 weeks, if not longer.
Wow.
You
Yeah.
going on a darkness retreat?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Are you going on a darkness retreat?
No, I'm not going to go smoke dope like Aaron Rodgers and shit, but
Lock yourself in a room.
I will be, and I said this on my show last night. I will be in class for the next 3 weeks, which is a 12-hour class, Monday through Friday. And I need to make sure that I'm well rested because it's classroom,
Good on that.
classroom as well as, lab work and things along those lines. So I will not be doing any shows unless I pop up and do like a spontaneous show on Saturday if I'm not totally exhausted. So I apologize for bringing the room down, but I just wanted to let folks know if there are further shows of the Wild Wild West, you're going to be without me unless I can find. I'll try to find you a sub or whatnot. But I'm not going to be here for at least 3 weeks, if not longer, because the classroom work goes hand in hand with possible employment. And the possible employment might make it very, very, what's the word I'm looking for, not happening for YouTube for several months. So I hate saying it because I enjoy doing this, but got to have money, and money means you got to have a job. And if you don't have that, you're sitting in your house taking money from your savings. That's not good.
Fair enough. And then directly, diagonally that
Cap
way.
came out of the gate swinging.
All right.
I said, he says, well, you see him everywhere. But I said, I just wanted to dispel.
He said, I got one for you.
Yeah. Hold my beer and watch this shit. Like, there you go.
Hang on.
Sorry.
The bomb is about to drop. Are you ready?
Yeah.
I'm going to nuke that crap right out of oblivion right there, my man.
Boom!
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, without further ado, hey, let's talk to Robert.
That's the bazooka to kill the mouse, right?
Yeah.
Sorry. All right.
You asked.
Yeah, and we got Robert here, who always puts the interesting secondary element there to his name here. Which we will discuss that with the Chargers, Robert, later on as we go through your coaching hires, because I'm assuming
the staff is set.
This is where the name is leading us.
Yes.
How are we doing there, Robert?
Doing very well. We obviously got some pretty exciting news from our teams over this past week. Can't wait to dive into it.
We did. So may as well throw over to the team that's made the most changes, and we may as well start with you and the Chargers there, Robert. Obviously, there's been, changing your head coach and not hiring the interim is going to yield far more changes than, say, the Raiders are likely going to undergo. Although I think the Raiders are probably going to have a few additional changes coming as well. Yep. If just being honest, right? It was hilarious. We made a joke in the DMs and stuff after the show. Wednesday, I said, I'm pretty sure Kellen Moore probably won't be with the Chargers much longer. and then literally the Thursday after the show, it's like,
Dude, it was like that night.
The morning after.
yeah, it's like I don't want Kellen Moore anymore. He can go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Yeah. I mean, we did say, when you hire somebody of Harbaugh's magnitude and just presence, you're obviously going to let him build the staff around what he wants. So, obviously there was a little bit of, I had a little bit of pause to think, maybe they'll have some continuity with Herbert and Moore in the offense. But, obviously Harbaugh's going to go in his direction, and, I'm not going to be upset about it at all. I think to finally put some talk behind why I put finally a run game is because we hired Greg Roman as our offensive coordinator. He was with Stafford. He was with Harbaugh at Stanford, and then eventually went with him to the Niners as well. So he's coached with him before. They had a great running attack in San Francisco. It's what got him to the Super Bowl. They had a mobile QB in Colin Kaepernick who could still sling it. Now, I'm not going to come up here and say Herbert's going to be running around like Lamar Jackson or Colin Kaepernick. It's just not going to happen. The dude has running ability. Don't get me wrong. I don't be surprised if you start seeing a little more read options in the offense, using Herbert's legs, because he does. We've seen games where Herbert has, where Herbert uses his legs to win those games. He doesn't just have the arm. He is mobile. He does have mobility. We saw him win the Rose Bowl with his legs. So I think people, Chargers fans specifically, they hear the name Greg Roman and they freak out because they're like, oh, it was Baltimore was complaining about him, and Baltimore, couldn't wait to get rid of him and all this stuff. But people forget that Lamar won MVP with Roman as the offensive coordinator in 2019, his first full year starting. So, you can't have it both ways. You can't say Roman was terrible, but then turn right around and say, well, Lamar's this great talent. It was like, well, yeah, he had a pretty great coaching staff to help him out. The defense was amazing. The run game, all 4 years that Roman was the offensive coordinator, was top 5. I think even 2 of the years it was first, or I'm sorry, top 3. It was they were first 2 times and then third the other 2. So I think this is perfect for Herbert. I think he needs this. It's been so much of, I feel like in his career, this 4 short years, they've tried to put the entire game on Herbert's shoulders. The defense has just been awful with Staley, or was awful with Staley. The run game was non-existent. I mean, we were 18th in 2020, which was Herbert's rookie year, and then every year after that, it was 21st, 30th, and 24th. So he's literally had to just drag this team to wins, and with no help at the run game, no reliable targets, I would say. I mean, Keenan Allen is obviously a Hall of Fame receiver, I think, and I think he's fantastic, but he's getting older. Mike Williams can't stay healthy. I know Rich is shaking his head, but it is what it is, man. The dude's got 10,000 receiving yards.
Playoffs.
Listen, I know the team success has been rough, but individually, I think Keenan Allen, not saying he's going to be a first ballot or anything, but I think eventually he does get in. I digress. Herbert has, to wrap this all up, Herbert has basically had to carry this team and drag it kicking and screaming to wins. So I think you're going to start to see a lot more, not that he already wasn't efficient, but you'll start seeing a much more efficient Herbert. The turnovers will go down, as if that could even get better. He rarely turns it over as it is. He's going to have a solid run game to rely on, that when they do have a lead and they do need to just run out the clock, they're able to. They don't have to throw it another 30 times because the run game is just so pathetic. So I think people just need to pump the brakes a little bit. Let us see what he does. Okay, before we start, he hasn't even coached a single game for us yet, and we're over here like already saying this is a terrible hire. Trust Harbaugh, trust the process, trust in what these guys are doing. They're getting paid for a reason. Let them go. I will panic if in the draft if we don't take certain pieces, though. That's where I will start to panic. But right now, the coaching staff has been set. Just let it ride. Just enjoy not having Staley anymore. Can we all just agree that this, regardless of who we hire?
I'm not going to agree to that, because Staley sucked and I wanted him to be there forever. And by the way, I think that you need to seriously submit yourself for your analysis. if you think that Keenan Allen is a Hall of Famer. I'm just saying that. If you think that Keenan Allen is a Hall of Famer, you need to go pop into a. By the way, I passed my urinalysis today, for my school. So, I know I ain't smoking anything.
We're flexing. It's a weird flex.
So you need to figure out what is coming out of your mouth because you're smoking something. And the other thing is that, Greg Roman is hot and cold. Greg Roman will be an asset, but he will also be somebody that you will be looking for your weapons and making sure that the security at your stadium, which are, they're real a-holes there, by the way, but they will be used effectively because there will be people that will want to brandish weapons with Greg Roman eventually. It might not be this year, but he is hot and cold. You love him and then you hate him and you can't get rid of him fast enough. I'm just letting you know that is the MO for GR. See what I did there? MO GR. Okay, there you go. That's it. But again, I went to I went for my urinalysis 0, baby. I passed it with flying colors.
Baby.
Never had. I pee clean, baby. And so you need to go. I'm sorry, Robert, but you need to go. And I know you're younger and you probably have things that I haven't even heard of. There's also stuff like we've had this discussion with like PCP,
purple
dots
or whatever.
Yeah, purple microdots. Alex, get that shit right. Okay?
Your purple polka dots, dude. I forgot about those.
Yeah. See, I don't because I'm old. But there you go. Hey, Rob.
Hang on, Captain. Here, this is for you, Robert. Keenan Allen currently in all-time rankings is ranked 47th in terms of receiving yards. 47th.
Mm-hmm.
And there are quite a number of more notable names in their own era who have not gotten into the Hall of Fame. And so
his career's not done.
You opened it up.
All I'm saying is he's still playing. He's still playing, and he just came off a career year in which he missed 4 games at the end of the year. All right.
Okay. First off, he's got to play more than 6 games a year for one thing.
He played 12 this year.
He's been healthy.
He's been healthy. He had injury concerns in his first 5 years in the league, and he's healthy now. He's been consistently healthy. He's been the only reliable weapon the Chargers have had the last 5 years.
I am okay. It's not the little fiddle; it's a big fiddle for you.
At the end of the day, the big question that he's got to overcome is: was he a better wide receiver than, say, someone who's still barely in the league still, Julio Jones? He's at 13,703 yards. I think Julio had absolute dominant games and dominant stretches in his career. And I think that Keenan Allen has some difficulty and will have some difficulty when taking off the powder blue and gold that you have on right now. I think that'll be a difficult one to justify. You also have the likes of Terry Holt, who is ranked 17th all-time yards.
Yeah, Torrey.
You have Henry Eller,
who's won a Super Bowl, by the way. Torrey Holt.
Yeah, you have Anquan Bolden. You have Andre Johnson, Reggie Wayne, who I'm sorry, he was in an upper tier through a good portion of his career. And so, the problem you have is that there are here's another one. This is probably well before your time here. Steve Smith Sr. If you don't know him, he's the dude that's announcing.
Give me a break before my time. Get out of here.
I'm going to give you my best. I'm going to give you my best Canadian accent. Sorry, not sorry. Full stop. Period. Okay. He is not a Hall of Fame.
And here's another one for you. Larry Fitzgerald.
Oh yeah,
Larry. Hall of Famers, though. I don't think they're eligible to be voted yet. So, if Devin Hester got in, those guys are absolutely getting in at some point in time.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I think with the longevity of Keenan Allen's career, the fact that it's not done, and he's got 10,000 yards, I think the argument can be made.
Thank you.
I think that's fair to say.
You can make an argument if you're stupid. I'm sorry. When you said that, my ears just bled. I'm like, man, what the hell are you smoking?
Alex, I'm going to give a nod to another wide receiver. Just, I don't want to belittle, just like, stretch this on forever. But, okay, so here's the deal. When you look at Keenan Allen and compare him to Tyreek Hill.
Oh. what are we doing here? What?
No, but look, you're looking at the Tyreek Hill.
Any receiver and compare him to Tyreek Hill. He's gonna put him to shame. What? Come on,
right.
Really?
But they played in the exact same era. Like the whole point of the Hall of Fame. Look, you can laugh all you want, but I already know I got one old dude here below me that is agreeing with what I'm saying here because this is the premise of the Hall of Fame.
You got the Raider fan.
Well, no, but what is the premise of the Hall of Fame?
For wide receivers, it's stats. It's Pro Bowls, it's all pros. For quarterbacks, it's rings, it's Super Bowl wins. For running backs, it's more or less the same. It's stats, it's all-time achievements.
You're using assessment, but the overarching piece. So, for example, when you hear guys like Shannon Sharp and some Ray Lewis and these other, absolute just upper echelon players that played in the NFL in their eras, they will literally all. The one thing I have to give them all credit for is they all have a very universal definition of Hall of Fame player. That is, can you speak to the era in which they played without mentioning their name? Right? Like and an example is like Megatron, for example. He has good stats, generally good stats. He doesn't have any Super Bowls or anything to his name, but the dude defined his era.
Right. Waving, baby.
The guy defined his era. And that's the point. Like that is the point.
So besides Tyreek, who would you say defined this era? Like what wide receiver defined this era besides Tyreek? Because we can make the argument that there's a lot of wide receivers. Like you didn't even mention D-Hop, and D-Hop was one of the most dominant wide receivers in this league with bums with bums at QB. Like it wasn't even fair to him, and he was still producing and still putting up the numbers. So that's why it's tough with receivers because it's so dependent on the QB. If the QB is poor or the QB is a terrible QB, what is the wide receiver going to do? We've seen the case so many times where you see. Not that Stephon Diggs was a bad receiver, but nobody looked at him as like this top elite receiver with the Vikings. He was putting up good numbers, but you had Thielen on the other side. You had the tight end, I forget his name now. Irv Smith was one of them. So you had other options, and then he goes to the Bills with Josh Allen, and he's in top 3 conversations. People are saying he's the best wide receiver. So honestly, what Keenan needs is that 1 year where he is like the best wide receiver. I'm not saying he needs to win the Triple Crown or anything, but he goes for 1,600 yards or something, double-digit touchdowns. Just that defining career year, and the Chargers also have team success to where you look back at it and you're like, okay, yeah, he was a dominant wide receiver. He put up the numbers. The team had success when he was putting up numbers. So, like I said, he's the guys you mentioned, they're all done playing. Julio is still playing, but realistically, he's not really, anything much anymore. He's
Well, again, you asked a question, so some of those answers would be in the earlier stage of his career. I would say you got a guy like Chad Johnson, and then you have just a little bit notch below that. You have a guy like Deshaun Jackson. You have Roddy White. He's a guy that everyone keeps on forgetting.
Roddy White,
but he had a legit stretch there where he was something special. He was the guy. Now he had a pretty precipitous drop off there. So, in fairness, it is what it is. But and then you have another guy like AJ Green, who a lot of people forget when he was there with the Bengals. He had 2-3 years with not great. He had the red rifle, right?
The red rifle.
The red rocket.
Yeah, he had the red rifle, right? And so that's not necessarily something you want to write home about, is saying like, that's the dude throwing me the ball, but he had great stats. Another guy is Deshaun Jackson, who he had a very dominant stretch there where he was a legit wideout in the NFL for a good portion there. So there are plenty of other people that I could point to. And then I already mentioned, you got Stephon Diggs, who's obviously lower than him in terms of stat sheet, but I think there's been moments where he's been pretty solid. And I would even, if you're going to be honest, if I'm going to put up names and players, I would also look at guys like Wes Welker, who I believe helped define a specific position in the NFL, where I don't believe you can actually complete that era. His stats aren't nearly as good, but I mean, can you honestly define that era of football without talking about Wes Welker kind of reworking and putting the name slot receiver into the common vernacular in the NFL? He was a really unique player that kind of set a tone for future guys to kind of fill that role. So, I mean, my whole point is, look, Allen's a great wideout. He really is. I'm not arguing that at all. I'm just saying that we're talking about this level. And in my opinion, I think he's just one notch below it. He could prove me wrong if he could prove me wrong if he starts showing out in the latter years of his career for like kind of the Iron Man, if you will, in terms of putting up those types of stats.
Yeah, kind of like what
Larry did. I got one question, okay? And I want to hear the answer to this. Rob, are you saying that Keenan Allen is better than Mike Evans?
Oh, 100%. 100%. I'm taking Keenan Allen over Mike Evans. Yeah, 100%. I'm sorry.
No way.
Yeah, I am.
No way. No way.
No, I am.
No way. And the bile and the protuberance that I have in my mouth from even mentioning a local fake pirate, but at least I can give the fact that guy is talented.
Oh, absolutely.
He works hard. He has the record. He has the record for what? The most 1,000 yards receiving
consecutive,
years in a row. Right. Mm-hmm. And you're saying that Keenan Allen
literally since his rookie year.
No,
there hasn't been a year
he hasn't.
It's ridiculous.
You just really just totally just showed how much of an ass you are.
Mike,
and I like you. And I like you, but you have no effing clue what the hell you're talking about with that last statement.
Look, to kind of put this in perspective in terms of why we're saying the things we are, Keenan Allen started in the league in 2013, and he's obviously still in the league today. Mike Evans started in the league in 2014, so a year after Keenan Allen. Mike Evans has 11,680 yards, and Keenan Allen has 10,530 to his name right now. So you're talking
he's got about a season.
No, he started a year after.
No, I know. I know. And I've admitted that Keenan Allen was
39 games.
Yeah, I've admitted if you look at the amount of games played, it's not even close. I mean, Keenan Allen just absolutely, again, it's because Allen was injured for the first 5 years. I mean, he missed, I think, like 3 seasons in total. Yeah. So
played one game in 2016.
I'm not going to come out here and say like Mike Evans, or I'm not going to come out here and say Keenan Allen is miles and miles ahead of Mike Evans. Would I take Keenan Allen over Mike Evans? Yeah, I would. But that's just my personal preference. But to say that he's like an above and beyond in a completely different tier, I think that's just false. You can't look at Mike Evans and look at Keenan Allen in the complete body of work and say that he's in like a different like tier, because then where are we putting, if Mike Evans is in a whole other tier above Keenan Allen and Tyreek is in a different stratosphere than Evans, what are we doing here?
No, I actually put Evans and Keenan Allen within the same group.
Yeah, I would as well.
My point is that I put Evans if we were lining them up, I put him ahead of Allen in that lineup, simply because I also think that availability, as well as skill set, is all part of the equation here. And frankly, if you're going to look at it, Allen has actually had some pretty decent quarterbacks throwing him the football.
Yeah, he has a good. I mean,
Philip Rivers
and Justin Herbert. Yeah, it's
like these are not like. Look, I actually really liked Philip Rivers, despite the fact
I did too.
Like he's a great dude. Like he's a hilarious guy. Dude, that bolo tie was just on point. Like I had credit where credit's due. But at the end of the day, I just think that you need to, appropriately assess, situations and circumstances. And could he potentially at some point, if he kind of pulls the Iron Man throughout his career, make it to the Hall? Maybe. But I think that the problem that you have is he hasn't been the guy that's been able to define, and I mean truly define, the generation of players when he played. I mean, I actually don't think Brandon Marshall will even get into the Hall of Fame, and he's ranked 24th all time. And guess what?
Yeah, but he also had.
I don't think he should.
20 catches in a game though. Like he might.
Yeah, he broke the record for that. 24 catches or something like that.
No, yeah. But my point is,
there's the Hall of Very Good. There's the Hall of Very Good. And Keenan Allen might be able to be one of the ushers allowing people into the Hall of Very Good. He might even get in there. But he's not a friggin' Hall of Famer.
He's already in there. Yeah, and his career's not over.
Oh, my God.
All those guys that you named.
You know what?
All you guys.
I apologize for train wrecking this show. I'm going to shut up about Keenan Allen. Full stop, period. He's not Hall of Fame worthy. Please go on with something else. Thank you.
Sure.
Full stop, period.
Are we talking about the coaches?
Let's move on to coaches. So you were talking about your
in
Roman, right?
Yeah.
And I do think that Captain made a great point in the fact that he did have, we'll call them roller coaster moments. Okay, and I think that's a reasonable analogy for some of the things that we saw take place. He did super well through long stretches and then seemed to have the crash and burn moments where it was just, you kind of started questioning if he had ever played football before or even coached yet. It was bad. Like there were some really bad moments. There was moments where you're just like, you have no business losing that badly. Right. And it was bad, bad.
I'd say the same about Staley.
You're not getting any arguments from me on that one. But what I am very curious about, and I'd like to know, Alex, start with you maybe on this and then throw it to Robert, is when Coach was here repping the Chargers, legitimately, and I actually have to admit that I agreed with him, I felt that the Chargers offensive line was actually, or should have been, and ought to have been, a strength coming in to the 2023-2024 season. It turned out to be, dare I say, one of your weak points. And I wonder
if have to dare to say it. It is the facts.
Right. Yeah. But the question is, was that a scheme mismatch that Keenan Allen or Kellen Moore, we're just on the tangent there about Keenan Allen. It's got me going again.
The coach now?
Yeah. But you got Kellen Moore, who is now no longer with the Chargers. But, is it just his inability to recognize the strengths of the players and put them in the right positions to do well? Or do you actually need to start going through a major overhaul in your O-line, which is no easy feat if you're going to be honest?
Yeah, no, it's definitely not. And I will say this, the O-line, for what it's worth, was in a good place. Obviously, we talked about it in an earlier show. You lose Corey Linsley to the health issue, and that's that's a huge loss. He was top 3 center in the league. I mean, nobody was really denying that. We saw that in Green Bay. We saw it when he came over. It was just night and day difference when you saw Corey Linsley in the lineup in the O-line, because it was just, and so you have that. You have the left tackle in Slater, who I believe is a fantastic left tackle. We definitely, Telesco nailed that pick for sure. I'll give him credit because, I wanted Penei Sewell. He didn't fall to us. And then, we got Slater, and obviously, Slater fits right in. So I think you have the most important position.
He's a better player too.
Right.
Better player.
Panay's pretty great, but yeah, I would agree too that Slater did turn out to be the better player.
He's also a right tackle though, so it's kind of
that the Lions cut when the Lions did that, I was skeptical. I was like, why don't you just put him at left? It's let him play his natural position, but whatever, he's doing great there. So not to get off topic again. So you have the biggest need for an O-line, which is the left tackle, blind side. So you have that on lock because Slater's not going anywhere. He's going to be blocking for Herbert for the rest of his career. The Chargers are not going to let him, especially now that you got Harbaugh. He's not going to let him walk out of that building ever. So you have that set. Now you do start to focus on the interior part of it, and that's where the run game and that's where Greg Roman, I feel like, are going to come in because we've never been able to run the ball with the interior O-lineman, even when we did have Lindsey here. That's why our run game has always been so bad, is because we could only ever do jet sweeps, outside zones, nothing really that's, up the tackles, in between the tackles. So people are again going to freak out about Roman. I think there was so much wrong with this team that we just need to fix it one thing at a time. Roman will come in and help with the O-line, help with the run game, help us establish a run game, some sort of it. Can we at least be top half in the league? Is that too much to ask in terms of rushing yards per game? Can you give us some semblance of a run game? The biggest thing we've always said with this team is Herbert has to do it by himself on offense, and the defense is going to let him down every time. If you can fix one of those things, it being the defense or Herbert having to carry the load on offense week in and week out, if you can give him a solid run game, then I think you significantly change your course of the season. You lost 7 games this last year by a field goal or less. You don't think with a revitalized O-line / run game and a semblance of a defense, again, doesn't got to be no top 10 or anything, but just not bottom 3, those can definitely turn into, you could definitely flip. You lost 7 of those games. You can flip 4 or 5 of those, in just fixing those internal issues that have plagued this team for God knows how long, decades at this point.
Thanks, Doc, for joining us. Bronco Bill is old, so I will have to check in on him and make sure that he's still doing okay. But last I checked, he's doing well. He's on kind of in the bookends of the week. You get me in the middle here on Hump Day. So nice to see you. You may or may not like me because I'm a little bit more crass than Bill is, despite the fact that he's old and crusty.
I don't know if you see down there, Jack Kenna put Staley let the Chargers down. 1,000% Staley let the Chargers down, because this team was supposed to come in and absolutely turn this defense around. Not that we had a pretty good defense with Lynn, so not that it needed much, but he was supposed to be that final piece to, all right, Herbert, go do your thing. We got it on this side of the ball. We got playmakers on this side of the ball. We're going to get you the ball back. We're going to do everything. And it never formulated into what it was supposed to be. And so it was the entire Staley era, you can't even say that the one year we made the playoffs was good, because you lost in that. Yeah, you lost in that fashion. You might as well have not even made the playoffs.
On the underpants.
God, man. Every week it was that. Every week it was Staley just shitting himself and not. I mean, like, I can go back to that game last season against the Vikings. We should not have won that game. We did not deserve to win that game at all. And I'm just like looking at it like, how can you be so stupid and it falls in your favor? It was like he was falling backwards into wins. Like he wasn't even trying to win, and it just happened on accident. Like it was bad. Under Staley, it was bad. So I think,
he was just out there playing Madden.
Yeah. Seriously though. Seriously running out there. Going like for it on 4th and short on your own 20, whatever it was. What?
Well, they called that 4th. They called that 4th and Staley, right? That was literally.
Exactly.
That was the coin. That was the coin term, right? And
yes.
So
for sure.
Robert, I just want to throw over to Alex on this. Being a former lineman, having some additional insight into that position group. Curious as to how you would apply Roman's style to some of the players that you already know on the Chargers. And obviously at the center, in my opinion, is actually probably going to be your biggest need, because you got to get better at that spot. Like, that is such a critical position. Alex, I think we spoke about that in that last little stretch there with a couple weeks ago now, just how important that center position is on the O line. What are your thoughts with the Chargers, how they fit with Roman, and maybe some of the changes that Robert might see in his team?
Yeah, well, I'll start with Robert kind of hit the nail right on the head by talking about Corey Linsley getting hurt, and I mean that. Yeah. I mean, I know going into the season, I know we got in arguments on the Chargers O-line being better than the Chiefs, and vice versa, and that all was very true. And then Corey Linsley goes down, and you see, I mean, that was pretty much the teach tape of like, this is why the center position's important. Because I mean, there's so much that goes into being a center. I played it in college. I can only imagine how much more is into it, at the professional level. But I mean, that's not a position that you can just plug in someone else and expect to have the same fluidity and be able to do everything so smoothly as you would before, because you got to think about someone else accounting for looking at the front and who's up on pressure and changing protections or calling out where the mic is, or changes in coverage. It just depends. But and the elite ones are the ones that are good at doing that stuff, on top of having the athleticism to be an elite center. But I mean, like your Kelsey, your Lindsey, Creed Humphrey, Ragnow, any of those guys go down. I mean, that offensive line is totally, significantly worse.
It's like losing two pieces.
I think from that aspect of, I don't know how many games he played, but I don't think it was that much, right?
Two or three. Yeah, something like that.
And I mean, and to note it again, he got hurt in the Chiefs game last year, and that made a huge changed the projection of the game. Yep. I mean, immediately, because they were like, oh, let's just put Chris Jones over here.
Yep, let's put Chris.
And he absolutely clapped. We'll clap. But hey, I didn't forget that.
Great name. Great name. Yeah. Not a great center.
Hell of a name for a meme. Not a good center. But so to go back to what you said a little bit earlier, Rich, I don't think that the offensive line was necessarily not a scheme fit for Kellen Moore. I think it was just more of the just total kind of 180 step backwards from losing their center and not having, someone as experienced to handle the line. And I say that because, I mean, for the most, I think outside of Pipkins, the rest of their offensive line is pretty young. I mean, Zion Johnson was a rookie the year before. I think Slater, was he the guard?
Yeah, he was the guard.
Yeah, he was a rookie last year. And both of those guys, and both those guys had stellar rookie years when Linsley was playing most of the season, and they regressed, in year two. Why? Probably because they didn't have the All-Pro center there helping them out,
leading that line.
So, I mean, I think that's priority one. In terms of fixing this offensive line, I think they've invested well enough, and maybe there's some other tackle out there to replace, the right side. But I mean, across the board, they got the rest of it. I'd say on lock, and it's more of prioritizing, getting that young center. And we've seen teams like you saw the Ravens do it 2 years ago, spend their first round pick on Lindenbaum, and their offensive line was, leaps and bounds better. So, I look at like guys like that, Powers, whatever from Oregon, that's just absolutely killing it.
Was Humphrey a first round pick?
No, he's a second round pick, but he was projected to be a second round pick and fell back. But look at that too. I mean, they get Creed Humphrey and their offensive line. It changes the way people look at it. So it's not just me from a position bias of being a former center. I mean, that is outside of the left tackle, your second most or 1B most important position out there. And depending on some of your scheme stuff, I mean, it could be your most important position, because most of the time, if you're a zone-based, offense, your center's got to be the one making all the calls of who's working what two guys to levels. And, if you're not experienced enough to read all that and do that in 1-2 seconds, I mean, that's going to create a cog in the machine. So, I think priority one is obviously a center, whether that be in free agency. I don't know who would be a free agent, but Yeah, or round 2, or maybe that guy from Oregon Falls.
Yep.
You never know, but I think that's got to be an early draft or early free agency priority for him, and then I'd say they're probably pretty set. And then the Roman thing, I kind of look at it as, head coach is Jim Harbaugh. Like, he was an NFL quarterback. He's got his own way he wants to do things, and so with an experienced head coach like that, you don't need to go find a total all-around offensive coordinator. Harbaugh's obviously a passing game guru in and of himself. He revitalized what was supposed to be the rebuilding 49ers overnight, and
with Alex Smith
into a reputable trade piece, and then he goes to Kansas City. But I mean, Alex Smith wasn't talked to like the way he was before Harbaugh got there.
He was a bust.
So I think from that approach, it's understanding, like, I don't need to go find someone that is an all-around package in terms of their offensive scheme or how they do things. I know I got the passing game handled and how I want to run it. I just need to get, my Einstein in the run game. And that, at least Greg Roman is an elite or a guru in and of himself with. So I think it's almost like, it was I think the smart choice. And they didn't go get some young person or like this hotshot college OC or anything like that. They got someone to kind of be the Robin or bad cop to Harbaugh's good cop with how they do things, and a guy that's pretty damn good at effectively utilizing the running game. And I know coach has mentioned that that's been the Chargers' one of their bigger issues, just not having an identity. And I think that these moves kind of signify that their plan is to be a run first, build off of the run identity type of team. And so I think, this is just the initial pieces of that. And we see him add a running back, whether that be in free agency or draft, and, get a center, and then, we'll see what happens. But yeah, I don't necessarily look at that one as much as the head scratcher, considering who the head coach is. Now, that being said, the Raiders offensive coordinator hire, I don't quite understand with who the head coach is. Yes. And maybe we can segue to that.
I actually like that segue. And Captain, I'm sorry to say,
you got the guy from the Bears.
The Bears.
I kind of agree. I think the Raiders really needed somebody who brings a well-defined, unique offensive identity.
I had to blow that up. That was good.
That's not wrong.
That's really funny. Like I mean, like really, really funny.
Ooh, Kev,
Kev, that might be like a plaque that needs to be printed or something, because that literally is the MO of the Chargers. And Rob, the funny thing is, you can't
Charging 101.
Yeah, like you literally can't even deny that. Like that's like
that's
I mean, there literally is.
I gotta laugh at it.
I think it's a trademark phrase that Chargers are going to Charger. And I mean,
Chargers are going to Charger.
There is a long-standing history of what that term means.
Yes. Oh, it goes back decades before I was even born. This chargering has been a thing. I digress. Onto let's talk about the Raiders.
I want to throw over to Alex's segue there, because I kind of agree. I actually think that the Chargers played what I'll call complementary football, where they have a very kind of dominant, kind of vision-driven head coach, and he got complementary pieces beneath him. Pierce he proved actually to be a quite a good head coach, got his team rallied, which you cannot deny. That was all on him. Turned the team around, again, all on him. But, and it is something that needs to be addressed, he does not have the long-term experience within the position, like within the head coach position. It is new to him. It's just a fair comment. And the Raiders have struggled in the last couple of years, at least, truly defining and maintaining, dare I say, their offensive identity in terms of who and how they want to be. And I think that this offensive coordinator they brought in is, at least on paper, from what we've seen thus far, not just filling me with confidence that he's going to do what you want him to do.
Okay, I got to ask. Do you know anything about Luke Getsy at all?
I do.
Okay, let me hear what you know about him, because I'm intrigued.
He has had flashes.
Because for somebody that says, "Well, blah 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 blah," I want to hear about it.
Sure. So he's had some.
Rich, I'm gonna before you go there, respectfully, I apologize, but before you go on to your rant, okay, the reason why I want to hear that is because I didn't know a lot about him. I've learned a couple things more the last couple days. So I want to hear your take, because I don't think Alex really knows too much about him, I would dare say.
Oh, no, I do.
Alex, okay, well, good.
He's from the same tree as Hackett, man. His timeline in the NFL is the same with the Packers with Hackett. You know who called the plays in? Not him. And then he goes to Chicago, and what happened?
Wait a second. Okay. First off, smug you.
Don't tell me I don't know anything about him. I'm going to hit you with some facts. I just gave you a little timeline there. Okay.
Smug you. And that's a better way than saying F you, just smug you. Okay, Robert, if you don't get it, just come prepared next time.
Just wait for the Super Bowl. Once we get to the Super Bowl.
We'll get you to the adult table one of these days. Anyway, I want to hear what Rich has to say, because again, I've got a little good things about him, and I'm like, okay, because here's the thing: everybody says that Roman's going to be great, and then he might. And everybody's going to say, well, this guy's going to be great, and then he might not. We don't really know. But I want to hear what you know about Luke Getsy, other than what Smug says, because I will elaborate on some of that Packer stuff too.
He has followed a similar trajectory to Hackett, but it was also slightly different than Hackett in terms of how he navigated his path through the NFL. Getsy has a reputation for being an incredibly bright coach. However, his focus has typically been in the pass game. Like, that's been his mental math, is the pass game side of things. And again, you can kind of see what it looked like on the field. He had a tremendous benefit of working with a very good quarterback and a very cerebral quarterback. And I think that cannot be overstated. It is a well-known fact, and frankly, you saw it play out in real time when you remove the dude that just knows what to do with the ball and has, I think, the best touchdown to interception ratio, I think, in NFL history, if I'm not mistaken, in Aaron Rodgers. It takes a lot to replace that. It just does. I'm sorry. Like, that is a different level. Okay? And furthermore, Aaron Rodgers has done that without being super conservative with how he throws the football. He is known for taking massive deep shots down the field. The difference is he just threads the needle like it's just, a fun Tuesday. Right?
Like he's just in the backyard wrangling.
Yeah, exactly. He's like, oh, you want to see this?
Like
all
he's
right,
Uncle Rico.
Yeah, I was just about to say Uncle Rico.
Yeah. So Getsy has this interesting path. My issue with Getsy is that he's had flashes and he's had absolute just tankathons, bombs, and he hasn't really proven himself truly on his own as being an entity of it on his own, as being a guy that can be the guy. Does that mean that he can't turn it around and kind of surprise the world? No, of course not. That's just no. Like, he has the ability to come out and be the guy. The problem is that in my opinion, for whatever it's worth here, is I think that Pierce could have benefited just a little bit more from a guy that just has a little bit better of a proven track record, or at least an absolute solid vision, a proven vision of some kind that the Raiders can actually steer a ship in that direction to actually meet and kind of become that thing. That's my issue with Getsy. That's my biggest issue with Getsy, which is where is the rudder on the ship going? And Captain, given your name and your background in history, I thought you'd appreciate that analogy.
I did like that. That was very nice of you to kind of get that nautical crap in. Okay. So here's some of the things that, and again, bless you, for your nauticalness, and fair winds and following seas to you as well, sir. Okay, that's something to look up. My issue is that we were on. Everybody was harping on Cliff Kingsbury. Okay, and I said this last night. On the show I had with Miss Peggy. I'm like, okay, Cliff Kingsbury. Yep. Okay. I'm good with that. When it happened, because I looked at what was going on, but I wasn't like banging the drums like, yay, Cliff Kingsbury, who flamed out in Arizona and who really didn't do too much at USC, aside from having some kid that he is gonna bang everything he can in order for Washington to move up to number one, to get his guy, because he wants his guy. And Cliff Kingsbury went into the building, and I don't have it. I can't say it definitively because we don't know. But we do know is that he wanted 3 years, and the Raiders were going to give him 2. He wanted a bigger amount of money, and the Raiders said no. He also, and that's the stuff we do know. Okay.
And Magic Johnson was calling him.
Whatever. Anyway, the thing that we don't know that I kind of think is happening is that when he was in his interviews, he said, hey, Caleb's my guy. We need to get Caleb, blah, 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 blah. And he was told in no uncertain terms, you're not getting Caleb Williams. We're not getting Caleb Williams. We're not going to job up to number one to get this guy because the cost is too expensive, and we like to actually build our team. So, sucks being you. You're going to have to use AOC4 or whoever else we bring in, and you're going to deal with that. If you are that great of a mind that you have, you'll make something happen. And he pulled the Lucy, and he took the football away, and he said, well, if you're not going to get Caleb Williams, then I'm going to go home. Peace out. And it was the truth.
Probably right, though.
Okay.
He said, I'm going to go to a team that has a chance to draft Caleb.
Exactly. And it will give me the money that I want, and will basically, if I say I want six party girls to snort cocaine with and have sex with, whatever it is, whatever he wanted. You know me, guys. I got
it. I'm going to need that Garoppolo deal. Give me whatever you gave Jimmy.
Yeah. Whatever. But see, he said, and the Raiders said no. And I give them credit. Thank God that they did. Yeah. Because the other alternatives were Chip Kelly. No.
Potato Chip Kelly.
The other thing about Cliff Kingsbury is he's a former head coach who flamed out. Chip Kelly is a former head coach who flamed out. And I don't think that they wanted to have that in the locker room with Pierce as the main man and a younger head coach who flamed out, because they already have great head coaches in there with him that he meshes with Marvin Lewis and Tom Coughlin. And they got that good rapport already. And I think that Cliff Kingsbury was kind of like all about him and wasn't anything about it. Because if you heard in the interview that he had when somebody asked, hey, can you kind of elaborate on what happened with Cliff Kingsbury? And he says, I don't talk about anybody who's not a Raider. And that said it all right there. So he basically he didn't want nothing to do with them. You know, was that full stop period? Shut the up. Okay. Don't want to talk about him. Okay.
That was Davis,
Moving
right,
on.
in that interview.
Sir?
That was Davis in that interview, right?
No, that was AP. That was AP when asked about Kingsbury. He said, I don't want to talk about he ain't a Raider.
Oh, I heard Davis makes. I heard Davis made a similar comment as well. So I wasn't sure what he was talking about.
Well, he kind of did him dirty, I think. I think there was everything but the paper was signed, and then he said, "Nah, I'm out."
Pulled the rug out from under him.
And who very famously did that before? That had like oh my God, Mick fired. Yes, of course. And they did. And they probably didn't want to. You know,
hearsay.
True, but I think they had a belly full of that. Yeah.
Sign.
Yeah, but
what?
I think I really think
I gotta go to your bathroom again. I'll be right back.
I really think that the Raiders got the better end of the deal with Kingsbury out. Okay, Now with Getsy going back full circle again. And by the way, Eric Bieniemy had an interview and didn't make it. Miss Peggy personally believes that Eric Bieniemy has been blackballed by various people. She lives in D.C. and she has.
Well, I mean,
okay, shut the up. Well, let me finish this point, please, smug kid and Canuck. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay.
Keep that same
attitude
in full circle.
Be that as it may, respectfully disagree, or with all due respect. Okay. Whatever happened, and the enemy will work, but there are circles that said that he has been blackballed, and like I said, Miss Peggy does have good sources. She lives in D.C. and she has sources amongst the Raiders and other people. And she doesn't have to divulge them. She's got good sources, and I will say for a fact that she does. Okay, true, wrong, or indifferent. Point being on Getsy is that Getsy, like you said, had high accolades before, kind of like Johnson did with the Lions this year, and he didn't really show. Yeah, smug and cap again. Yeah, hi Kara. Hey, welcome to our show. He had the high accolades, but yes, he really hasn't been able to perform. But as the passing game coordinator for the Packers, it was when Aaron Rodgers did win MVP. I guess I could be the passing game coordinator for the Packers with Aaron Rodgers, and he would have won MVP, and I would have gotten the accolades. But still, earlier when he was working with the wide receivers and some guy by the name of, I don't know, Devontae Adams, he had his best year as a Packer when Getsy was his immediate conduit, okay? And Adams was beating a drum on get this guy in here. He will definitely talk about a run game, Robert. Getsy actually, per reports, wants to bring back what the Raiders are known for: ground and pound, throw deep, and use the tight ends. And he did use Cole Kmet. I screwed up there. Cole Kmet, who's been ascending as a tight end in Chicago. What he did have lynched onto him is he had a quarterback who wasn't with the program. And before he came in as the OC, I was saying, I have a feeling that the Raiders are going to go after Justin Fields. That is way off the table now. There is no way in hell. I think Keenan Allen will make the Hall of Fame before Justin Fields would ever be a Raider. Okay? To go full circle on a lot of these conversations. Okay? But that's gone. So, but see, I did the same Keenan Allen crap that Richie was talking about before. I think that he is going to get a quarterback of his standing. He's going to work with getting solidifying the running game. And by the way, in his interview, and AP went over in his interview, AP went at him hard. And Getsy, to his credit, didn't throw any of these events or the people. He didn't throw them under the bus. he took credit where credit was due, and he took blame where credit was due. And I think that has a lot of fortitude with what they were looking for at the position. I'm not saying that Luke Getsy is going to be the greatest offensive coordinator there, because obviously Greg Roman is, per Robert. Okay.
Wait, I
put in words in your mouth, man. This is what I do. I am the a-hole on the thing. But the thing is that he's gonna make do, and with the people that want to see him there, I think that he will be an attribute to the Raiders, especially if they go run heavy, if they use an RBC, if they tell Josh Jacobs, hey, you want to be here, you might want to take a lesser offer, and basically a pay cut over a longer period of time. If you want to stay a Raider, this is what we're going to do. And if you want to do it, great. But there's a lot of positives about Getsy. Was he my number one pick? No, he was not. But I'm willing to give him and afford him the opportunity to show what he can do, like I afforded McFired 1.5 years before he was. Actually, I afforded him 1.25 years, because that after that quarter year this year, I said, get this out of the building.
Yeah.
And I didn't swear. See, I can do that. I think it'll be an. Oh, but I'm sorry. But there's a lot of questions. We don't know who our offensive line coach is yet.
That's a big deal.
That still has to be decided.
Big deal.
And we're working on the coaching staff, so this is still an incomplete jigsaw puzzle. But I can't really say that it's great or not great. But I do like the fact that we got AP in there, we got Marvin Lewis in there, we got Tom Coughlin in folks' ears. We got the ex-defensive coordinator for the Jacksonville Jaguars to help out with Patrick Graham. We got a lot of quality people in there, okay? Maybe we have Hugh Jackson come in as the quarterback's coach. That's been bantied about. And as long as Hugh Jackson doesn't miss as many penalty sessions, it's good for the Raiders.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, good. Okay, Robert, did you get that, Robert? That was
I got it. I'm with you.
Okay.
We're right here.
Okay.
We're right here.
We're right here. Right. But yeah, there are still people to come in, but I really do think so. Yeah, I heard about Ocho Cinco. I don't have the sourcing on that there, DZ. I'm not sure. I heard about it, but I haven't seen anything on it. But if you bring in quality people that are good teachers and can implement things, and the rapport is better, all of the sum of everything is better than just the one, however the hell you say that, I think it'll be good things for the Raiders, because they already showed that when the defense have gotten better, and the Raiders defense has sucked for years. And with this past year, they showed what a good defense can do. Now you just need to have an offense that scores a little bit more points. And I think that once you get that solved, and if you go for what the Raiders were going for, I think it'll be positive. Like I said, there's still questions yet. That's why I said, shut up, all you guys. Let me finish my thought, and then we'll go there. But again, it's still incomplete, but I'm not saying it's bad yet. I have some spirit. And by the way, I was very tired before this show came on, because I trying to get my body clock over to get up in early in the morning and taking that. But now I'm fully awake, and I thank you for Keenan Allen crap and other things going on here to at least get me wide and awake. So Richie, I know long-winded, but there you go.
If for a quick second, Cap, I just have one or two questions, just completely opinion based, because I'm very curious to see what this Raiders team does in this offseason, because you are kind of in a not rebuild, but you are rebuilding. It's more so the offense is rebuilding more than the defense, because Pierce came in and showed that he can coach this team and that defense. And, you have Max Crosby, you have Diablo, you have some pieces on that defense that you can absolutely be formidable in the division and in the AFC. But I think it really, this hire to me it just puts even more questions as to what you guys are going to do in the draft and what you guys are going to do in terms of QB. Are you going to keep AOC for? Are you going to trade up and take somebody in the draft? Are you going to sit at 12, 13? I can't remember. Or take a QB there? Are you going to select? So I think this, like you said, this hire, we can't like the Roman hire, we cannot jump overboard immediately and just say, oh, this is a terrible hire, or oh, this is the best hire ever. I definitely think within the draft and within these coming months in the offseason, I think when we see what moves you guys make, that'll definitely tell us more of the direction you guys want to go.
Good questions. Good questions there, Robert. We are 13, one behind the Broncos at 12. Yeah. So whoever the Raiders want, the Broncos will take at 12. I kid, but I don't. But it always comes down to it. Like, well, they want this guy, and yeah, we can have that guy too. It would be good for us. But I said that, and Angelo, who might be doing my shows while I'm on hiatus, and I thank Angelo and Bishop if it comes to fruition. So there'll be some content on my channel. We'll see about that. But it's still an incomplete puzzle. Like I said, the draft is in total flummox. I do know, I can guarantee you that the Raiders will not be jumping up to take Caleb Williams, because getting Kingsbury out of the building, that is the one thing you can bank on, that they're not going to do that. And I'm glad, because I don't want Caleb Williams.
Captain, wouldn't that be an absolute boss move on the Raiders' part, though, wouldn't it?
It would be crazy.
No, imagine Kingsbury comes in is like, I want this, I want that, and then both Pierce and Davis tell him to go kick rocks. He's like, fine, I'm going to a team that's going to go get him then. And then wouldn't it be just an absolute, just like, popping colors moment for the Raiders to be like, here, hold my beer, Cliff. I hope you like your new contract. Trade up to the number 1 pick, draft Caleb Williams, and say, look who we got.
Yeah, it would be kind of like the movie Draft Day.
Yeah,
like we got the guy. Like, what do you want for him? What do you want for him? We'll take your one and a bunch of other things. And by the way, if the Raiders do trade up, and if it's me, if I'm the GM, if I'm not Tom Fiasco, that's for you, Robert. No, Tom Fiasco. That's what one of my viewers calls him, Tom Fiasco. So if you use that, you got to give due credit to,
because he just zeroes in on one player that he likes and doesn't look at anything else.
Yeah, but Tom Fiasco works better if you're gonna be detrimental to him, okay, or say something that's bad to him. So, and for all of those that say that, make sure you give due credit to Sharif Allah Khan, aka Black Thanos, who calls him Tom Fiasco. Anyway, if the Raiders do go up to get somebody, I'd like to get the kid May. I'd like to get the kid May. That's not going to happen. If the Raiders do go up to get anybody, it's going to be Jaden Daniels, because of what he has with AP. He's already got that rapport. That you can bank on. If the Raiders go up, it's because they're going up to get Daniels. That's what I can say.
They'd have to trade with Washington or Chicago, whoever's sitting at 2, because there's
Washington.
Two is Washington.
No.
Three is Patriots.
No. Whoa. Hey, I'm not done.
Yes, sir.
You told me to zip it. I'm telling you to zip it. Now, listen. So here's the deal. There's a lot of discussion right now with regards to Washington trading up to the number 1 pick because of the Kingsbury piece. And so I said what I said intentionally before I was rudely interrupted. Because,
but with all due respect.
With all due respect, naturally, that it's possible that the Bears could end up then at number 2 rather than number 1, and there is also additional talk that the Bears are interested in trading down again, into that kind of 10 to 15 range, to just absolutely get an absolute Miami Dolphins style draft haul in terms of rebuilding their team, which is not a bad move if you're going to be honest, right? Because they have so many holes on their roster, and if you can stockpile 2 1s or 3 1s this year and 2 1s next year for a double trade down, I mean, yes, please. Right? For sure. And so that would potentially give the Raiders or the Broncos or a few other teams the potential ability to get back up into that kind of 1-2 kind of piece. and either draft Caleb Williams if he falls, because again, Jaden Daniels is getting a lot of buzz right now because it depends on what you're looking for as a team. You either want a guy like Williams because you think he can be that generational talent, or you're looking at Jaden Daniel and saying, I kind of like the
intangibles,
the broader range and intangibles that he brings to the table, and really, I could see potato at that moment where people are like, hey, like the coin flip is worth it, and I could totally go Jaden Daniels instead of Caleb Williams, and I think that'd be really, really interesting. So again, not in my nature generally to be as rude as that towards you, Captain, but nonetheless, you had it coming.
No, I deserve that one. I deserve that one.
And we'll go from there.
I shut you up and you shut me up. Now we're even.
Yeah. So I mean that's all come out in the wash over this last week. That's why we have the show. Is this is all relevant to the AFC West, and we go back to some other coaching pieces, and I just want to quickly zip through this, and we can get right into Super Bowl talk here with Alex. Some quick pieces.
Oh, is there a game this week?
Kind of a the most important one of the season that our colleague here happens to have his team in that final game, where they will be panning to Taylor Swift like every 10 shots in the game, which is fine.
Oh my God!
That's over under on pans to Taylor Swift.
20.
I would say
I was going to say like 30.
Over.
Yeah.
Over.
Take the over, whatever it is. Take the over.
I was going to say, I'm sure that based upon even what they had on the Grammys the other night, it was boom, 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 boom. I think that she is going to be on at least 50 times.
Yeah. So with that in mind, I just want to quickly, for the Broncos fans here, I want to bring up Christian Parker. He's a coach, a DB's coach, who has now been poached from my Denver Broncos. I do think this is a really important one. And this is one that, for the benefit of the audience here, you probably don't know Christian Parker, and that's okay. I don't expect you to. But I do think it's important that you keep an eye on him. He's a dude that I could totally see in the next, 2 years being started to be discussed for head coach opportunities. He really has just vertical career trajectory in the last handful of years. He's going over to the Eagles to work under what can only be described as his mentor in Vic Fangio. But Christian Parker has a personality unlike Fangio. Fangio is just really good at what he does. And I think Fangio has now realized that his jam as a defensive coordinator, that's kind of where he belongs. And I think you're going to start getting him bringing in guys like Parker, bringing in some of these other guys that he's had on his previous staff that he knows have the extra it factor that he doesn't to be in that head coach role. And I think he's going to do his best to elevate them because I think he's that kind of guy. And I think that's, look, the Broncos fans, I think, have been harsher on Fangio than he deserves. I think that he fielded some absolutely unreal defenses when he was here in Denver as the head coach. I mean, they were ridiculous. What most people don't realize is that we were on our 5th inside linebacker and he still finished in the top 5. You don't do that. I'm sorry, you just don't.
And that secondary was absolutely ridiculous.
Oh, and Robert, good to you mention that 2 of those members were undrafted free agents.
That's crazy.
Just mull that over for all the folks that are basically saying that you have to have round 1 and round 2 guys to field the top 5 defense. Fangio says, "Hold my red wine while I cook my pasta. Let me show you how it's done." And kind of fields a top 5 defense. And so, yeah, exactly. Hey, come on now, forget about it. Yeah, exactly. He's flailing planes as he's on the field coaching. Come on, that's funny.
I gave you a chuckle, man.
yeah, that was funny. So, anyways, he's going over to work under Fangio again. I can't blame him. Fangio is in that absolute upper tier of defensive minds at the NFL level. Top 2, maybe, I would argue, probably in terms of defensive coordinators. And I don't even know if that's even arguable at that point. He's minimum top 5, but he's like top 2,
he's
3.
Definitely top 5. I think.
I think top 5 is a given, but I think he's like 2 or 3 at least. And so, anyways, when you look at where he's at, I think he's going to field an absolute heck of a defense there in Philly. I think they have some good pieces there, and I think he's going to elevate the rest of the guys because that's kind of what he does. Now, Parker is and this is the negative piece on the Broncos, has been responsible for guys like McMillan, for the development of Patrick Surtain, for Justin Simmons, actually in the last 2 years, 3 years, starting to improve elements of his game that he was really struggling with if you look at it earlier stages of his career. Now, we all know my thoughts on Justin Simmons. I would prefer we trade him for draft capital. Great guy. I just don't think that he is the elite player that he is. Yeah, I think it's time. But that doesn't mean that he's not an absolute stellar citizen and he's not an absolute ideal draft pick as it pertains to how he carries himself and behaves within the community. He is literally the poster child for a guy that you want on your team in that regard. I just think that there's football to be played, and I have a football opinion on him. And so with regards to kind of the impact for the Broncos, I really do think it's going to be a bigger one than people are thinking it's going to be. And I think it's going to take Peyton 1 or 2 go rounds to find someone who's going to be at the caliber of Parker, in my opinion, despite the fact that there is someone in the wings on the Broncos staff. I want to reserve judgment until I see if they elevate him or not, to see where he lands and how he performs. I want to wait and kind of see what happens there, and we can go from there. And then, Alex, to close things out and transition fully over to your Kansas City Chiefs, and I swear I'm going to regret this decision because I can feel the smugness coming through the screen. But
oozing out of me.
Yeah, it's just oozing out of your pores. But thoughts on Bieniemy in terms of, I mean, this has been a theme. Like, we've actually discussed this on the show before, so this is nothing new to our fans. There was a noticeable difference with the Chiefs this year.
Yeah.
Without Bieniemy. It is undeniable that the polish that you once had within your offense in terms of product on the field was just notably different. It was like the attention to those little, minor details that you would otherwise have locked down was just missing. And it is a known fact that is kind of Bieniemy's thing. He is a extraordinarily details-oriented guy. And Captain, to tie back to your previous comment on Eric, that's where I was going with it, is that a guy that goes into that level of detail and goes right down that rabbit hole, so to speak, will often rub people the wrong way because they're looking for a very broad answer. And he's starting to give like the Bill Belichick answer about how important a fullback is and the fact that it existed back in the 1950s and give you the history lesson on the position and blah, 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 blah. That reminds me of Bieniemy. Like to me, from what I've heard, that's an Eric Bieniemy answer. And
right. And again,
it's not everyone's cup of tea.
I'm not trying to disparage Eric Bieniemy because like I said, everybody throws up, great, but, and then they go back to his days in Colorado with the one charge against him. And that one charge, unfortunately, is a smudge. But with Eric Bieniemy with Andy Reid, when you play mom and dad, good cop, bad cop, whatever you call it, it works. It definitely sucked when Eric Bieniemy left. He had Nagy there, and they couldn't get rid of Nagy out of Chicago fast enough either. And then he's still back in the Chiefs, and it's like they're like, dude, what do we need to get Bieniemy back? Because the environment is there for him in Kansas City. Whereas in other places, and that's the key word there, in other places, he's not playing to the same audience. And that's why I said he has been disparaged, rightfully or wrongly, because of that. And that's where the rumor and or the human comes up about the blackball. That's all I want to say.
Right, but in fairness, if we're going to be truthful and honest with the product we saw in the field this year with Washington, that was one of the best versions of an offense we've seen from that team in years. Mm-hmm. And I mean years. And Alex, you called this out in one of our last shows. That is in large part due to Eric. It just is.
Yeah.
That's what he does. He minds his P's and Q's. He is always pushing for details and saying, do better, do better, do better. And, a lot of these guys, and frankly, Fangio has the same problem, is he's saying, work harder and you'll play better. And they're like, well, I don't wanna. And, acting like little whiny babies. And, that's not good. You can't, like, the truly elite players from in days gone by did 3-a-days when they messed up, and they didn't complain about it. And now in today's day and age, it's like, I have to practice, really. And it's
we're gonna do up downs until I get tired.
Right, exactly. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And it's those types of things that we just don't see anymore. Eric presents himself and certainly has a reputation as being kind of in the more old school kind of camp in terms of coaching style, which is details, details, and details. And it shows in his teams. You saw it in Washington. They've never looked better. You saw it in KC when he left. They saw a noticeable drop-off, although in fairness to KC, Alex, and we'll get right into that for the Super Bowl, in the last 2 games, you've kind of had a resurgence. So that's not necessarily something that has sustained itself, but it certainly did for the majority of the regular season, where we saw things occur in KC that we just haven't seen occur in years. And frankly, only since Eric left have we seen those, we'll call them negative things on the offense, kind of rear their ugly head. But it is nice, for at least as a KC fan, I'm sure, to see those things get tightened up. And I think that's in large part because of the fact that you have so many Super Bowl winning players on the roster still, that it's just, guys, if you want to actually win this thing, like, pull it together.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Like I think that's more player driven than it is coach driven, if I'm going to be honest.
Yeah. Well, and I think Eric Bieniemy, I know this might trigger some people, but I'd almost compare his coaching style to like Bill Belichick, right? Of like, this is my highway, stay on my highway. If you get off it, I'm going to be on your ass. And, that coaching style works and is not really addressed when you're winning. When things are going wrong, that's the first thing they point to. And obviously, Commanders, pretty historically non-winning franchise, at least in the last 10 plus years. So we saw it, like I was getting to when Cap mentioned them earlier, like we saw it from literally training camp. They were already complaining of Bieniemy's coaching style. And then Rivera's going out and kind of like not backing up his coach, but just like talking, softly addressing it. And then there's reports of, if ownership asks the players about bringing EB in as a head coach in Washington, they don't anticipate getting a very rave backing from the players. I do think that, it's pretty apparent at this point that he's been blackballed for whatever reason, because, it was easy at first in KC to be like, well, yeah, we're not going to hire him because everyone knows Andy Reid calls all the plays. So then, he goes out and takes an OC job at a different team, albeit I think the job he took, he was set up to fail from the beginning. Almost immediately after accepting it, they sell it to new ownership, which pretty much means you already got the target on your back. And then every week just seemed to keep going down. But like you said, I mean, we saw, Sam Howell. I pulled it up when Cap was talking about it. He finished 12th in the league, almost 4,000 yards, and I mean that guy looked like dog water the year before. So, for better or worse, Eric Bieniemy, I'd say, did his job with what he needed to do, and going to Washington and prove I can put together a productive system that doesn't include Patrick Mahomes or Andy Reid's fingerprints on it, and then he still doesn't get a job.
He's the reason.
Yeah,
he's the reason.
I think
it's crazy.
I think some of it too was, it seems like they always find that what's that factor we can point to justify not hiring him. And I'm sure part of it now was, well, look, dude, he left KC and they're still in the Super Bowl, so he probably didn't mean that much. I'm sure that was part of it, on top of just he doesn't get player backing. I mean, I don't know. The man doesn't have a job, so I think any of the reasons could be the valid ones.
We'll see just how good the Commanders are this season without him.
And with Kingsbury, I mean, they're definitely selling that. They're going for Caleb Williams, so it's either going to work or not work. But we've already seen Bieniemy back meeting with KC, and I'm sure if it doesn't work out for him getting a position elsewhere, I'm sure he'll they'll work out some dynamic of keeping him and Nagy, because I mean they were both had their fingerprints on the offense last year, so maybe they bring him back and work out that dynamic. But like I know I've said before, he was the proverbial bad cop to Reid's good cop, and he was the guy more on like discipline and focused on the little things. And you've heard Mahomes and Kelsey and all these other players talk about that. And, that is the one thing that we saw them lacking in when they went through that, 4-game stretch of looking pretty mediocre. So, he definitely played a part in their success, but for whatever reason, people outside of Kansas City don't seem to look at him that way.
I take him in Denver in a heartbeat.
Oh yeah, you definitely will.
For real. I take
100%.
him in Denver like that.
Yeah.
He has proven, literally proven, that he goes to a team and they look like trash, and by the end of the season, they no longer look like trash.
It blows my mind, honestly, how Josh McDaniels was able to get 2 head coaching jobs because of basically sucking off Brady the entire time of his career, and Brady essentially made him. But Bieniemy can't get 1, and people are using the excuse of, because you have Mahomes. McDaniels had Brady, and nobody made any excuses about that. They were like, well, he's just a great offensive mind, and he can do it anywhere. No, he can't.
Well, I will say this about McFire. This is the only positive I'll ever say about McFire. McFire has never lost to Bill Belichick. Be that as
I would also argue that McDaniels.
I'm serious. He's never lost to Bill Belichick. He beat him in Denver. He beat him with the Vegas Raiders with Chandler Jones before Chandler Jones checked out. And I can't remember if he was already fired or AP had that win against the Patriots this year. One or the other. He's either 2-0 or 3-0 against the Hoodie. That's all I'm going to say.
And I'm going to add on to that. When McDaniels had full control when he was here in Denver, and this is where you're going to find that I am completely different from every other Broncos fan that you may ever hear speak on this, is when you go back and actually analyze the individual picks that he brought into Denver when he was here, the overwhelming majority of them that ended up making it to the Seahawks Super Bowl were Josh McDaniels draft picks. The overwhelming majority of that roster, because he was the one that basically traded up and he was the one that made all those really aggressive draft moves, because he insisted on having full control when he was here in Denver, and he traded up for, he was here for all of those kind of bigger moves that we made here in Denver to really put together an offensive line focused on, kind of dominant, interesting wide receivers. Like he was here, or he was with the Broncos, or he had his footprint at least on, things like, Demaryius Thomas, things like Eric Decker. You got that's another wide receiver, by the way, through a stretch when he was in his dominant phase. He was
Decker or DT.
No, DT. He was like
him and Emmanuel Sanders were an insane duo,
unreal, right? And
I agree with that.
And those were all McDaniels kind of within that general era when he was here, and he insisted on bringing in those. I mean, he made some interesting moves, like insisting on Tebow, but again,
he'll live in infamy for that forever.
But again, you have to run a specific style of offense for a dude that plays the way that Tebow does. Tebow is effectively a fullback that happens to throw the ball from time to time.
Hey, he's a tight end. Right? He was a tight end in Jacksonville.
He's an outfielder.
Yeah, but when you saw him play, he willed his team to victory, and it tended to work, and it tended to function and do well. And then you also have Champ Bailey that kind of was brought in, just before around that era as well. So again, you had some really, really great moves and solid decisions that were made in and around the McDaniels era. And he was responsible for more than most Denver fans would like to give him credit for. And I think you need to be mindful of that. My big thing with the Raiders, and what I would have been interested to see, is I heard awful things about Ziegler in terms of how he was doing as a GM. Yeah. I would have liked to have seen Kelly take over as GM, or even bring in a different GM and see where a counter to the bros making the decisions together.
Actually, they did have that. Kelly knew more about the team in the McDaniels regime than Ziegler did. Kelly would be able to talk about the roster, the draftees, the unrestricted free agents. I mean, honestly, if I had Ziegler's job, I'd thank McFired every day of the week for paying me to go to Vegas to basically sit on my hands and look good in a suit. Okay. Because what I'm hearing, yeah, well, Ziegler allegedly made decisions, but that's been dispelled when he got out the door, is that Kelly was the real brains behind that, which is why when he went in for the interview, they made the position of assistant general manager. They didn't let him leave the building because they didn't want to lose his expertise, which is why he's still there now, which is why Kelly will be a GM next year for some other team, because they know how much of a commodity he is. So I will do, if Kelly can unfrack Fiasco's later round picks, because as Robert so aptly stated that, he can get the first 1, 2, 3 rounds, because Raiders suck at that historically. But if Fiasco, and I'm paying homage to Sharif, can do right in rounds 1, 2, and 3, then Kelly, who's still in the building and is still working with the scouts and knows good talent, can take care of 4, 5, 6, 7, and unrestricted free agents. I'm good with that.
So, Alex, let's get your take on the Super Bowl and upcoming matches. You were recently on a couple 49er, or at least a 49ers podcast a couple days ago. You're also on Coach's show, giving your take on the upcoming Super Bowl. For the benefit of all here, love to hear your take on interesting matchups, things that we should all be paying attention to. Give us the smug breakdown of the Chiefs, what we should be paying attention to, and who I should be betting on.
Yeah.
Asking the real questions.
The ultimate smug thing from the Super Bowl is the fact that it's played in the Raiders Stadium and it's a home game for the Chiefs. So their field and locker room are currently covered with all KC red. So that's pretty sick when you think about it. But to this to the game itself. I've said a few times now. I honestly think that these two matchups, both these teams are. It seems like good at the thing the other team is not good at. I said like San Francisco, obviously, basically a 5-headed monster on offense, but dangerously good at running the ball. And McCaffrey's arguably league MVP, and they're right up there, in terms of the metrics of where the Ravens were in terms of their production with running. Whereas Casey's defense is, predominantly that's their Achilles heel is stopping the run. And then, you have San Francisco's defense, who is at least at times looked pretty successful. I'd say, these playoff runs for them have been a little bit more lackluster than their regular season, but, they're predominantly cover 3, cover 4 zone defense, where you have Travis Kelce, who notoriously just eats apart a zone coverage. And and then you see the Chiefs, take more shot plays with guys like MVS when they get those types of looks. And flip side of that, you got the Chiefs, which are predominantly like a man coverage team. But then you have Ayuk, who's like the league leader in beating man coverage, on top of Debo and Kittle, who, aren't too bad in that department themselves. So, just kind of across the board, like I said, both these teams kind of match up perfectly with what they were successful at to get to this point, and how they defend, what that other team is successful at. So, I do think that, I say all that to say, I think overall this is going to be a very good, entertaining game. I don't think we're looking at that like Patriots-Rams matchup a few years ago that was like 6-3 at halftime.
Yeah, 10-3 final score. Terrible.
And and I think the big deciding factor of this game will be who makes the first mistake. Whether that's Mahomes or Purdy. I think just given with the sheer aspect of the position those two play, I think it comes down to which one of them makes a mistake first. And the flip side of that, the other big factor is like I've said a few times now, who can kind of dominate the edge and have that continuous pressure on the QB, whether to speed up their internal clock and, i.e. increase your probability that a mistake is made, or, get them panicked and holding onto the ball. And then you're looking at, another opportunity for turnovers or sacks and, putting them in more of a negative game script. So, those two things kind of go hand in hand, because honestly, in any game, the team that's getting the most pressure, whether that's, in the run game or in the pass, is usually the team that wins. And looking at that, you have the Chiefs defense, which will be without a Minihue. I know we've kind of briefly touched on that before, but he obviously tore his ACL. He's out. But he, like I said, he's out for a six-week stretch during the regular season, and they still were second in the league in total sacks and third or fourth in, pressure and QB hits. So, pretty much haven't skipped a beat from where they were last year in terms of getting after the quarterback. And, on the flip side of that, outside of Trent Williams, this San Francisco offensive line is, nowhere in comparison to the Chiefs. And I'd say this is probably more of the, one of the better units overall in terms of getting pressure that they've had to face. So it'll be interesting to see kind of how Spagnuolo plays chess and where he puts Chris Jones and how he plans to, handle Trent Williams or,
by putting Chris Jones away from him. That's what he's going to do. He's going to be like, where's Trent? All right, Chris, you go over there.
I said last night I'd put Chris Jones there for first play of the game and just tell him to ram his helmet into Trent Williams' chest plate and be like, that's it, big dog. And then just let George Karlaftis, go over there and just try to do something. But, outside of Trent Williams, these other guys, especially in these playoffs, they've looked susceptible to giving up pressure to, only 5-man, type schemes. And we all know that Spagnuolo, is notoriously not going to just bring 4 or 5 guys. He's going to dial up some blitzes. So I do expect KC to do better in that department than San Francisco will in terms of getting pressure. Will that ultimately create Purdy with turnovers? I don't know, because up to this point he's been getting pressure in every game and somehow busts out a scramble or makes the throw to get something done. So it
throws across his body, across his body. I'm like, really, dude? And he got away with it.
Yeah,
unreal.
He kind of just, I like Purdy. He has he just oozed, you can tell he just has all this confidence, and it's like, I feel like he's just gonna be like that until he can't get away with something. And it's like, oh yeah, okay, I get. But so far, he's been able to get away with every poor decision he's made in a game. So could this be the game to do that?
Good quarterback at the NFL level.
Oh, absolutely.
He's that guy that everyone keeps on discounting, but he keeps on winning.
Yeah, I mean,
right? He just keeps on winning. I'm sorry. Do you know what it is? I actually see a lot of parallels, not exactly per se, because Mahomes really came in and just kind of dominated pretty quick.
Yeah,
but that's not a parallel.
No, but the point is that people thought Mahomes was not going to be as good as he was going to be.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And I feel that Purdy has some of that same energy thrown at him, which is you're not going to be the guy. And he's like,
how is that smug, Cap? You gonna tell me Purdy's better than Mahomes? No. Come on.
Cap, come on. We can't.
And sorry.
This is what I said last night. Eli Manning beat Tom Brady twice. Are you gonna say Eli Manning's better than Tom Brady?
Alex, hold on. Just to be clear in my comment, I am not saying that Purdy is better than Mahomes.
I know you were.
Okay.
But...
Like to be clear. Okay.
That's why I didn't direct anything to you, because we're cool. We're cool, dog.
That's a fight I want to take on.
I just like the way it came. It was just the way it came out. I'm like, here it is right now. That's why I said it. That's all I said.
So, Alex, question for you. How do you think your defense is going to handle Shanahan's approach to offense? Mm-hmm. It's a really McVay, Shanahan, to a lesser extent the Ravens this year, but certainly Shanahan is in rare air in my opinion, because he's sustained it for longer.
Yeah.
And frankly, I think credit goes to his dad for passing on the knowledge to the son.
He taught him well.
He taught him very well. Thanks Shanahan. That's a legacy there. Here's hoping it continues, because they've had some legit success at the NFL level.
Ask his dad if he ever got his money from Al.
Probably not. No. Yeah. So, question for you: how do you think your defense is going to handle the similar looks or identical looks? Not even similar, identical looks, because that's really what the Niners are known for with Kyle Shanahan, which is, I'm going to run the same play with the exact same look, the exact same blocking, and one's going to be a 50-yard pass and the other one's going to be a 20-yard run.
Yeah. I think I said last night, it's he runs everything in tight formations to look like I'm running all the time, but realistically run 70% of the time. And
exactly.
Get over the top of you the rest of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think you see them play similar to how they played against the Ravens, outside of the obvious, spine scheme that they had in place for Lamar. Because, I mean, I think until Purdy gashes you a few times, you don't really need to be implementing that into a major forefront of your plan. But, with the Ravens, we saw them, obviously play tighter all around, but they were kind of creeping more into the box, understanding that, they were a run first team. Well, kind of breeze over the fact that they only handed it off 6 times. But you could tell that was a major point of Spags to, take away that run game to some degree, and, make them beat you in other areas. And that's kind of been what we've done, or what they've done, I should say, through this most of the year, is kind of take away that one thing you're good at and make you beat them at something else, which usually coming down to, getting pass plays, in 3rd and long situations, which, as the secondary has shown, they've been pretty shut down in those moments. So, I think that you see a similar approach to that Ravens game, where the safeties are playing a little more up, obviously to, kind of honor the aura and skill that is Christian McCaffrey. But, I think that's got to be McCaffrey has to be the person to beat you in this game. And if he's not, then I think that the Chiefs find themselves being pretty successful at the end of it. And I say that that's probably the biggest factor. When you look at their resume, in the 2 games against Detroit and Green Bay, they got down to some early leads, or early deficits, I should say. The Detroit one, obviously, way worse. But if you do that in this game against Kansas City, I don't see them coming back with the same success that they did in those 2 games with how Casey's defense has been up to this point. So, if they can, like I said, and a component of that is they're taking the run out of the game to some degree, because they have to have a little more sense of urgency in scoring. So then you're getting them off of what they want to do. Or if you take the run away, you're getting them off of setting up plays later in the drive with, getting these successful 8+ yard gashes. So, that's going to be, I think, the biggest focal point of this game.
So this is a super interesting comment, despite the fact that it's such a short one here by DZ. And I truly mean that, which is, this is a bit of a loaded one, which is the Ravens didn't actually play their normal game plan against the Chiefs, and they lost because of it. Now, I'm going to flip the script on DZ here a little bit, just a little bit, because I think it's important. Kyle Shanahan is not Harbaugh, and Kyle Shanahan has the benefit of his father, who is legit Hall of Fame caliber head coach and mentor to his son. So let's start there as a baseline. It's very similar to kind of like how Peyton Manning and Eli Manning had their father to kind of allow them to stand on his shoulders and both be like, in a upper tier. Obviously Peyton more so than Eli, but nonetheless, they are both Super Bowl winning quarterbacks multiple times. Okay. So when we look at this here, Alex, and I think this is where this gets super interesting, the Ravens decided to chuck the ball over the yard and move away from their standard game plan. I think we can.
Who knows?
Yeah, that's my point. I think we can both agree that was not a good idea. Okay.
No.
Right now, I don't believe the 49ers are going to make the same mistake, because I think Kyle Shanahan has the benefit of his father and his, mentality and fortitude, if you will, to just not make those same mistakes.
He won't panic.
Knowing that to be a likely fact, how do you think your team will do as they get slowly worn down, playing over their skis a little bit based on their performance for all season, if we're going to be honest, in terms of your lackluster and or poor performance against the run defense? Eventually, you would have to imagine that at some point the extra effort will eventually cause cracks to occur, right? Like, I think that we can agree that that's typical in the NFL, regardless of who you're going against, and why the Chiefs would be unique in that regard. I don't see why that would be the case. So how do you think your team is going to handle a perhaps more poker-faced head coach in Shanahan. We would hope, because that will certainly make the Super Bowl more interesting.
Mm-hmm.
If he crumbles,
and how are you going to handle that? How are you going to handle the persistent run game, despite the fact that they might be down by 10, and they're still going to try to run it down your throat and eventually likely succeed?
Well, I mean, I guess if they continue to hammer on it and eventually succeed, the hope would be that it's too late in the game. I mean, right. I don't think that they're going to stop the run game completely. But I think you have to get them in more third and long situations than they're normally used to, to open up the door for more mistakes to be made when, trying to secure a first down. Like I said, I think they're going to play them similar to how they played the Ravens and, make them get beat over the top, which, in that game, if you recall, the two biggest plays were kind of later, Lamar ran around for a little bit, but then, got a big hit to Zay over the top. But outside of that, they were pretty shut down. And honestly, this defense as a whole has been pretty shut down all year. And most of the games that they have lost, you can go and look to the fact that, the offense turned the ball over 3+ times or, put 14 points on the board in the span of 10 seconds due to back-to-back turnovers and, things like that where, that's been the biggest thing that's helped this defense in the playoffs. And I think why we've seen kind of this different vibe with how they've been is just that the offense has played turnover-free football this whole time. I mean, Mahomes is not, put the ball in anyone else's hands, knock on wood. I think there might have been one fumble, but it wasn't lost. And that's been the biggest component because, this defense, and I read the stat last night, but, they are one of only 4 other teams in NFL history that have gone to this point in the playoffs and not given up 28 points or more in a season. And those other teams are the 2000 Ravens, the 2002 Bucks, 2005 Steelers, and the 2010 Packers, which are all, historically pretty elite defenses in terms of, NFL history. So, I mean, if this is the game where that –
the only other one, Alex, that you have to include in, like, historic defenses is the 2015 Broncos.
Yeah. Well, but apparently they gave up 28 points or more at one point in that season. I mean, there's definitely 85 Bears, but I'm just saying, of the 4 teams that have done that in a season, those are all Super Bowl winning teams, and those are all historically pretty good defenses. So, I think that's kind of, I guess, the overarching thing I'm saying is, a lot of people are kind of not giving this Chiefs defense the credit that I think it's deserved, and especially as we got into the playoffs and, shutting down some of these supposed elite offenses. Maybe the Miami one, not a total shutdown on their part, maybe the weather. But at least the Ravens, I mean, going into that whole game, it was how the Ravens were going to be so unstoppable, and they don't put up any points they put up a field goal in the second half. And KC at the flip side, puts up less than 100 yards and no points. I mean, with that from offensive production, you should lose the game. But this defense is so good that they didn't. And so that's why, I think that if San Francisco starts like they have and get kind of behind early, if this defense plays the way they have, it's going to be really hard for them to continuously pound the ball in the run game and, hope that they get successful at some point, just because if they have a 14-point lead, all Mahomes has to do is just not turn the ball over, hand the ball to Pacheco and, maybe get a couple checkdowns to Kelsey, but just keep the chains moving. And it's going to be really hard for Purdy and San Francisco to have to come back. I mean, they may start totally firing out of the gates and, then it's a totally different game. But, the two outings we've seen in these playoffs have shown that they kind of take a minute to get up to pace. And, I think that this defense has all the tools in place to take away those, get up to pace, things that they need to do, i.e. big bombs to Ayuk or feeding Kittle. I think that is going to make it harder for them.
So I agree. Now, we would be remiss at this stage of the show to not throw it out there. We need, like, this is prediction time. I mean, let's just be real. It is that time. So for those of you that are with us, I want to see your score and who wins in the chat, please. I want to go ahead and get those comments flowing here. Those of you who are joining after the fact, I don't want to see cheating. If you watch this after the Super Bowl, it doesn't freaking count. Okay, that's ridiculous. But for those who watch it before the show, before the Super Bowl, I want to know your score predictions down below as well. I'd also like to hear a lot of comments and get a lot of information in terms of your general thoughts on coaching changes in the AFC West. There has been a lot of them, more so than normal, actually, given circumstance. So also interested to hear your thoughts on those things as well. So for those that are joining the show, keep those comments flowing. We're going to go ahead and throw over to Captain. I'd like to know your thoughts on who wins, who loses, and what your score is going to be for the Super Bowl.
I don't have a score because I'm not really good at that, and I will just say that I'm thinking Niners only because whoever wins, it's going to suck for Raider Nation. But we definitely need to disinfect our locker rooms after that crap that I saw. I think they definitely removed the rugs because they knew what the Chiefs would do to the Shield. I'm going to say Niners.
Okay,
yeah,
Robert.
Man, as much as I'm rooting for the Niners and as much as I would want them to win, I'm going to take the Chiefs in this one. I just don't think Purdy's ready for it. I think Purdy will show why he's a 7th-round pick. You can only run the ball so much. That Chiefs defense, like Alex was saying, is hellacious. I mean, it's unrelenting. I'm gonna say the Chiefs are taking this one 27-20.
Damn it! I was kind of hoping you'd all say the opposite. Just for the vibe, My coach last night showed me his playoff record.
Alex, I'm going to close it out. I'm going to throw over to you for your score prediction. As our Chiefs expert, I will close out the show and we'll go from there. So where do you have things?
Yeah, I mean, I think ultimately, it's like I said, it's going to be a good game, not like a low-scoring defensive outing. And, like I said, comes down to probably who makes the first mistake and maybe potentially the only mistake of the game. So with that kind of in mind, I'm predicting the Chiefs win 27-24. Or some variant of that. I don't think it's a big margin by either team. But, I wouldn't be a smug Chiefs fan if I said that they wouldn't win.
So what you're saying is take the Chiefs plus 2.5.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be I'm going to pick the Niners actually in this one. I think that well, first off, I simply just can't pick the Chiefs. It is against my football religion to select the Chiefs to win anything when it comes to the Super Bowl. I will admit, though, your team did surprise me this year, given how your offense looked. So I have to begrudgingly give credit where credit's due, if I'm going to be honest. Right. I do think that the Niners offer a different challenge to the Chiefs, even more so than the Ravens. I think the 49ers have a far more competent head coach and play caller, and I think that is going to be a bit of a difference maker in this game because I think that was the problem, if you will, for the Ravens when they played the Chiefs. I have this one going as a 20. I'm going to say 24-21. Or no, I'm going to go 21-28 for the 49ers. That's kind of where I'm at with this. So, guys, with that in mind, we've got all our predictions in and all that good stuff. We are going to love you and leave you and say until next week, where the West Side is the best side. Peace!
Fast lane when I pass in the street, bag of money in the passenger seat. Simcoe's been asking for me on the road from the west to the east. Way up, I might never come down, cause the coast's racking up the flame out. So high, I might never come down, so what, this is my lifestyle. Wait a minute, work hard for the car.